Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back for episode number 1499. And I'm coming to you live from Smart City, Glasgow, right in the heartland of bonnie Scotland. And thanks to Chris and Cherie Geo and Truth Frequency Radio, your number one network. We go all the way around the world, from America to Australia, and just about everywhere else in between. On occasion, when I had Chris and Cherie joining me one time on the show, we got banned in over 200 countries. In fact, as myself and Chris like to refer to it, we were both banned in this world and the next. I hope that gives you an idea of the kind of crazy that goes on around here, because we are going to wrap up today's first 1400 episodes on KBS in style. Yes, somebody who's been with me for a part of this journey along the way, and we now see him every Wednesday, is Jimmy Jeans. Now, don't forget, Jimmy Jeans is a radio host in his own right with his own show over on Aftermath, and I'll get him to tell you more about that, because just recently, Jimmy has gone quite as mad as me. And by mad, I mean he has taken on a 5-day-a-week show. Hey, listen, I don't regret 1 minute of it. I really don't. And as I look forward to 1500 episodes tomorrow with Scotty Lopez, I can tell you I still know nothing. In fact, I've probably got more questions now than when I started off with, when I was just stood on the precipice of the rabbit hole. That's the way it works. And, you know, probably 1500 episodes more, and I'll not be any closer to having the definitive truth on everything or maybe anything. But it's the journey that we make the memories. And I want to thank everyone that's always ever been on the show. I want to thank Chris and Cherie Geo in particular for sticking with me through these first 1499 episodes. Dang, dude, that sounds outrageous. 1,000 episodes is outrageous. 1,500 episodes? That's taking the biscuit, right? But I can't think, like I said, of a better person than Jimmy Jeans to be joining me for the night before 1500. Jimmy, how you doing, man? And I like it. You've almost got like on a ceremonial hat for the occasion. Dude, love you, man.
Yeah, I do have the ceremonial hat. Well, thank you. And thank you for letting me be here on the night before Christmas.
It's synchronicity, dude. The universe wanted it this way, man. He wanted it this way.
Well, I was there for the 1000th episode. I'm pretty sure I was there, and that was a big one. So tomorrow you're halfway there to 2,000 episodes, man.
I know, dude. I'm going to keep going for as long as I've got wind in my sails. I will be here and chugging along.
There's no shortage of things to talk about in 2021 either.
No.
You know, you know what I mean? There's just so much going on at such a breakneck speed. It's almost impossible.
Well, Jimmy, with 1,500 episodes under my belt, I would say I'm probably firmly established by now. But you're just starting out on your 5-day-a-gig kind of session. Tell people where they can find you. Tell them about your show. Tell them about Aftermath. And then let them know what we're going to be getting into today, man.
Yeah, well, so there's a new platform out there. It's called Aftermath.fm. And Clyde Lewis is the big man on campus. And he's there 5 nights a week doing his show. And then I follow him immediately after Clyde's show. That's when we come on. And we got a 2.5 hour show. And we've been taking calls pretty much every night, the last 30 minutes. And so there's something different going on every night. We got a whole group of people that's sort of coming in from around the world. Got Monty Dean from Australia. He pops in on Fridays, and then there's a group of people that cruise through. And on Mondays, we have a friend of mine, PhD, Dr. Rowe. And this past Monday, we did a show on San Francisco, which was really interesting because there's an idea out there that San Francisco may not have been built, but it may have been discovered and dug out. And we talked about that on Monday, and it was really interesting, to take a look at some of the photographs of San Francisco, and there's like one or two guys with a wheelbarrow and a donkey. There's no people, but there's a giant, city there. So, there's this idea of this mud flood potentially that happened. And we talked about that a little bit, but it's just a great platform to be on. There's a lot of other great shows on there, and I feel honored and really to be on there, and for them to give us a chance to do the show 5 nights a week. Because doing a show a couple nights a week, it's not really that hard to do that, because you have time to get prepared for it. But every single day, you have to be ready. You have to keep an eye on. You know how it is, Kev. I mean, you've been doing it for 1,499 episodes, so
No, dude.
I
know. So, Jimmy, listen, you sent me an idea of what we're going to be getting into today, but I'd like you to tell the audience what you've kind of planned on and what we're going to talk about, man, because this is pretty cool stuff, and there's some stuff in here that I know a little about, enough for us to really make it a good conversation and a really interesting show. So tell people, Jimmy, what we're getting into.
Well, there's this, we constantly look around the world, and we see these pyramidal structures. We see these same references to different ideas. You can see a statue that was made in South America, and the deity that they made the statue of, and whatever the deity may be doing. You can see actual carvings in Egypt of the same exact deity. Maybe features are just a little different, but he's doing the same thing with whatever it is he's doing it with. So it's interesting to see how these things or these ideas that come out of Egypt sort of migrate around the world, And so that I'm a big bloodline researcher, and because I'm Rh negative, and so I've done a lot of research and just seeing where some of these bloodlines have appeared and what's happened over time, And so one of the interesting things is that the queen is actually related to Muhammad, bloodline wise. But the Egyptians that exist in Egypt today have no bloodline ties to Muhammad or to that same bloodline. So it's interesting that there was a bloodline in Egypt. And so that sort of put me on a path to figure out, well, what happened? Because there were a lot of magicians and people that were learned men that were in Egypt that left. And they became, they went off, and, a lot of people think that they went crypto Jew and they turned into these Jews, but they were not Jews. And this is where this Babylonian magic came in, the Talmud, this type of thing. There's some concepts that have been put in around this Talmudic Babylonian sex cult that came out of Egypt. But I mean, that's not necessarily what we're getting into today. But what we are getting into is something called the tribe of Dan. And you see this tribe of these red-haired Jews that, and this correlates to what we've talked about these giants, right? So the giants are also red-haired. And these red-haired giants are supposedly direct relations to some sort of Nephilim or some other sort of otherworldly group of people.
You mentioned you've got an Australian guest that comes on, Jim. And one of the stories that I've had relayed to me by our Australian friends, a big shout out to Uncle Donnie, who's recovering from a heart attack right now. Wow.
I heard that.
Yeah, man.
Send a prayer out. Yeah.
Good man. It must have worked, Jimmy, because he's home now. We were telling him all to rest up last night, but it was great to hear from him. But Auntie Luna, and these people for me it's like talking to two very, very wise, and I don't mean this in like our years way, but it's almost like ancient type wisdom and stories that we get from Australians, especially, with the Aboriginal people over there potentially being the first humans. There's a good case to be made for out of Australia, but one of their stories, Jimmy, talks about big, tall, ginger giants. And Donnie was telling us last night, as a child, guess what colour his hair was? Ginger.
Wow. So
Let that sink in. Let that sink in for ancient ginger-haired things going on and still with us, being expressed in the genetics today. Some of the purest genetics on the planet. You know, riddle me this one as well, audience, and Jimmy too, as Jimmy was about to go into the tribe of Dan. But another thing that always kind of startled me when I found this out was the mobs in Australia. It's like the clans of Scotland, but you know, Jimmy, they were obviously very, very aware of mixing of genetics back in the day. Because there's some mobs that are not allowed to procreate with other mobs. It's just a no-go. It doesn't happen on a genetic level. Not allowed. No. So that tells me that there's some deep and ancient knowledge of an understanding of the genome that we think we only cracked back in like the 70s or something. So it's kind of crazy, dude. And that's why I love hanging out with you in particular when we go down these ancient rabbit holes, you know?
That ties into what the Colburn Bible said, because when the Colburn Bible, in the creation story of the Colburn Bible, it says there was a man, they created, from the material, they created a woman, but those beings were instructed specifically not to mix with the people that were on the earth, specifically, and they did. And that's why what happened, and they ended up getting sicknesses because they mixed the bloodlines between these beings that were sent, or these that were engineered to be here, mixed with the local population, so to speak. And that same kind of concept presents itself in the Rh negative bloodline stuff, and the way that certain blood types are in other words, it's an Rh negative person can breed with a person from Earth, but for some reason there's a problem sometimes when two people get together and they're Rh negative. That
I thought you were going to say that there's a problem when they get together with somebody from Alpha Centauri. I was going to say, whoa, this has gone deep woo early, Jim.
I know. Well, the thing is if you look at all the royalty across the planet, if you look at the presidents and all these people, most of those people are of these Rh negative bloodlines. But you could, go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, sorry. I was just sniffing. Sorry, didn't mean to make a noise.
Yeah, no problem. So back to the tribe of Dan. So the tribe of Dan are these red-haired Jews that seem to have migrated, and it started in Israel, and then it literally went all over the planet. And that's really how I found out about the tribe of Dan, to be honest, because I'm Irish, of Irish descent, but I live in America. But I'm really deeply interested in shamanic principles from around the world, and of course I would naturally study the Celtic ideas and Celtic shamanism, that type of thing. And so as a result of doing that and seeing some of the magic and the Druidic ritual practices in this, there's a lot of similarities to some of the things that go on in Egypt, like we were talking about earlier with the Babylonian sex magic and all this.
Well, throw this in as well at this point, Jim. Throw this into the mixing bowl, the shamanic pipe that we're stoking here. On Freaky Friday, we were talking about the Dogon, a tribe of people that probably moved out of like Egypt type area into North Africa, Mali. There's still 600,000 of them today, from what I believe. They still live a very, very nomadic, shamanic type lifestyle. But there's a connection between them in North Africa and Orkney and islands around Scotland. And there's an author and a researcher called Laird Scranton who's done a lot of research on this very topic. And some of the prehistoric buildings that have been uncovered at places like Skara Brae, they actually appear to be very, very similar, to the point of being freakily similar to some of the earlier dwellings that the Dogon themselves used to use, and still do in many cases in North Africa. So we have potential evidence for definite kind of transfer of people and cultures from that neck of the wood up to where we're going to be talking about, and you were talking about Ireland, and I'm in Scotland. So there's
Mhm.
more than enough here to make this a very compelling story, and probably quite easy to make a good case for everything we're about to get into.
And the thing is too is the Red Cross, or the cross that people see, the red equilateral cross, or the Maltese cross, this type of thing. This is a key, because this is the tribe of Dan. That red cross is the tribe of Dan. And it's funny because there's
Well, the
I
Knights
don't have it up.
Templar, they also had that same red cross as well. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how I looked at at that cross one day. I was up in San Francisco, and I was at the there's a museum there, and there's a Jewish museum in San Francisco, and they were going to do some wireless stuff in there, and so I was up there to bid a job, and I was sitting out in front waiting for the appointment, and I was looking at the building, and I'm staring up at the facade, and I look up there, and this not remember what I'm telling you, this is a Jewish museum. I look up there, and around the whole building there were ornate equilateral crosses next to each other all the way around the building. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going, why are these crosses on, because I'm waiting for this appointment, I got nothing to do. Why are these crosses like? And then it dawned on me, I looked at it, and I was like, wait a minute, am I looking down on a four-sided pyramid? And that's when it dawned on me that what I was looking at might be looking down at the tip of a four-sided pyramid. And then I actually looked at some of the geometry, and there's actual drawings to support what I'm saying. That cross it has a meaning that may be a little bit deeper. So I mean, if that is true, and that is what that is, then that would explain why those were on the side of that Jewish museum, because there's a potential that a lot of what's in Israel might have came directly out of Egypt, and so it's an interesting subject, and that is the tribe of Dan right there. And so over in your neck of the woods, there's a whole bunch of really great lore around this. I don't know which direction you want to go in. Did you want to go to that? Do you want to talk about the migration, or do you want to just go straight over here to this article from Irish Central and get into a little bit about they may be, are the Celts one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel?
I think that'd be a good thing to throw in there before we hit the break. Sounds good to me. It's already shaping up to be a heck of a show. Oh, yes, indeed. So here we go. Are the Celts one of the 10 lost tribes, of Israel? It says there is a theory that the Celts are descended from one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And as Jimmy has said, they call it the tribe of Dan. So big shout out to everyone over in the tfrlive.com chat room. I'm about to post the cross that Jimmy was talking about over there for you to have a look at. I'm sure you've all got a picture of it in your mind by now. But this here says there is a theory that the Celts are descended from one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, the tribe of Dan. Proponents of this theory in historical essays and elsewhere point to various parallels between Irish and ancient Hebrew culture. For example, they note that the harp, the symbol of Ireland, also plays a role in Jewish history as the musical instrument of King David. Some maintain that the tribe of Dan, known for its seafaring, conducted sea voyages to Ireland and colonised it as early as the period of the Judges in the 7th century BC under the name Tuatha de Danann. Scholar Jeanette Moser writes, there are certain facts that suggest that the Celts might have derived from a Jewish tradition from the East. The Celtic body of ecclesiastical, I got it right, and civil knowledge was Druidism. Now, their system can be traced back to about 1500 BC. Now, to throw in here into the mix as well, to compare that to Scotland, they talk about the very mysterious Picts, Picts, and they were here from very early on, and it was in the 5th century AD that we're told that St. Columbus came to Scotland and had a bit of a altercation with a sea monster. And of course, that became known as Nessie. And of course, they came here at that time to spread the new word, the good word, and to convert all of these pagan druid types over here to a new belief system. So we're talking about similar kind of time periods here, albeit give or take a couple hundred years. So if we come back to the story here, it says, in the Psalter of the Cashel, an ancient text written by St. Cormac, it states that the Tuatha de Danann ruled in Ireland for about 2 centuries and were highly skilled in architecture and other arts from their long residence in Greece. The Tuatha de Danann, and I'm just going to call them the tribe of Dan from now on, were the descendants of Danaeus, the son of Belus, who went with his 50 daughters to Argos, the home of his ancestor Lo. Now, in Irish legend, the Tuatha de Danann, who were considered to be demigods, were said to have possessed a grail-like vessel. These teachers of wisdom were the founders of the Druidic priesthood. Now, were they connected back to the tribes of Israel? As part of the kingdom of Israel, the territory of Dan was conquered by the Assyrians, and the Dan were exiled. The manner of their exile led to their further history being lost. So soon after, the Celtic tribe appeared in Europe, leading to speculation that the Celts were, in fact, the tribe of Dan. I can see how they got there. It's not a huge leap and a jump. According to the Hebrew Bible, following the completion of the conquest of Canaan by the Israelite tribes, after about 1200 BC, Joshua allocated the land among the 12 tribes. Dan was allocated the most northerly region to the north of Galilee and the west of Jordan, stretching north as far as Laish, Dan's main city, which became known as Dan. Now, in the biblical census of the Book of Numbers, the tribe of Dan is portrayed as the second largest Israelite tribe after Judah. Some textual scholars regard the census as being from the priestly source, dating it to around the 7th century BC. So following the conquest of the land by Joshua until the formation of the Kingdom of Israel in 1050 BC, the tribe of Dan was part of a loose confederation of Israelite tribes. No central government existed, and in times of crisis, the people were led by ad hoc leaders known as judges. Now, with the growth of the threat from Philistine incursions, the Israelite tribes decided to form a strong centralized monarchy to meet the challenge, and the tribe of Dan joined the new kingdom with Saul as the first king. After the death of Saul, all the tribes other than Judah remained loyal to the house of Saul. But after the death of the Ishbosheth, Saul's son and successor to the throne of Israel, the tribe of Dan joined the other northern Israelite tribes in making David, who was then the king of Judah, king of a reunited kingdom of Israel. However, on the accession of Rehoboam, David's grandson, in 930 BC, the northern tribes split from the house of Dan to reform a kingdom of Israel as the northern kingdom. And just like that, we're back. We're live. It's episode 1499 right here on the Kev Baker Show today. I'm getting excited. I hope you're getting excited out there too. And wow, look at this, right? The universe made it land on Jimmy's day here for the end of the first 1500 shows. And look at the woo that we're getting into already, man. This is absolutely brilliant. Jimmy's taking us into the theory of the tribe of Dan. And a movement of people and knowledge, definitely knowledge from the Middle East, way up to Ireland. Yes, indeed. Very close to where I am in Scotland. And of course, Jimmy's got that Irish blood running through his veins. If you take a blood sample from Jimmy, it looks rather ominous because it's kind of dark colour, really dark, murky colour. And then it's got like a little frothy head at the top. It's Guinness. Guinness runs through the brains of all Irishmen. Everyone knows that, right, Jimmy?
That's right.
See, it looked like right on cue you were picking up a pint of Guinness there. That would have been absolutely fantastic.
Well, I do have my pint glass in my hand, but unfortunately it's hot coffee. But let me just say, it's been said that if alcohol wasn't invented, the Irish would have taken over the world, my friend.
Probably there's probably something to be said for that. They're a hard-working shower.
That's true. Yeah. Hey, so the thing about this is, man, this
I was brainwashed though, Jimmy. Here's a quick one for you, right? You were talking about the British royalty, right?
Yeah.
When I joined the army was, for me, lucky. It was a time when there wasn't exactly too much going on. Mid-90s. And I can tell you, dude, we still had bases over in Ireland, very active at the time. It was coming towards the end of the Troubles. But for a period of my life, I was almost brainwashed into hating Irish people. Because, you could at some point end up over there, dude. And you were talking to people who had been over there at the height of the Troubles. And, yeah, I tell you, man. But listen, my attitude has obviously changed over the years. I broke out the not only the mind control but the army, or the army and the mind control. So I look at the world in a very different way today. But I thank the army for that, because I still don't think I would be the Kev Baker that's done 1499 episodes if I didn't have that episode of the army on the way. So I wouldn't change one thing, dude.
You just got me thinking, that's something I've never done a show on is the IRA
cool.
and what was going on in Ireland back then. Because, I talk a lot about a period of time in America. I talk a lot about the late 60s and through the 70s in America. And that was a really volatile time going on over where you guys are back then, too. Because, you couldn't – a lot of times people don't realize, what was going on back then, especially the younger people.
I can tell you, Jimmy, I didn't realize – but when I came to Glasgow, a lot of that transfers from Ireland to Glasgow, either from people moving away from that and people having to move away, or more apt to say running away. There's a lot of that sentiment right here in the west of Scotland, and that's why I sometimes laugh. I sometimes laugh and I say, if you want to look at holy war, Scotland's got it sussed, because we've even got like football teams for each religion. We've got the Catholics have got Celtic, and then the Protestant side, the Unionists, they've got Rangers. Yeah. So until all these warring factions around the world figure out that you can actually have a couple of football teams and kick lumps out of each other 4 times a year and stop lobbing bombs at each other, maybe that would be a way forward, So the west of Scotland, dude, it's like a weird part of the world. And that's from me, somebody that didn't come from the west of Scotland. I kind of arrived here thinking I was kind of wise to the world, travelled about, seen different countries, but nothing prepares you for like sectarian hatred, because that's what there is here. There's stories out there where unfortunately somebody wearing a Celtic strip walks into a Rangers area, or somebody wearing a Rangers strip walks into a Celtic area, and they don't come home.
No.
That's the level of hatred we're talking about, and I don't think people really appreciate that.
No, and the thing is it runs really deep, because when it was really going on, people were walking down the streets and cars were blowing up, people getting blown up all over the place. You can just walk down the street, and it's interesting to look at the dividing line between the philosophy of the Protestant Christian and the philosophy of the Catholic Christian, and some of the things that, if you look at the Catholic, if you look at the Pope, and you look at the whole thing that goes on with that, you can see that maybe there's some sort of a fight going on there, that we recognize there's something wrong with that Catholic Church, and maybe there's a battle going back to what the things that we're talking about today, because that's what's controversial about the tribe of Dan, is the fact that there's some that say there are Jews who are not Jews. That is not the one. That is not the real Israelite, and that those Jews are these satanic cult, is what people say. They call it the synagogue of Satan. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that's what's controversial about the tribe of Dan, simply because you seem to see that the tribe of Dan has remained in power throughout and beyond what we're talking about here, and into the modern era. The tribe of Dan is still present.
Well, that bit of the story we read, we already found out that they're literally kingmakers. Literally kingmakers, because they took, where was it now? It was up here somewhere, but they took, where was it? Let me find the word so I get it right here. Yeah, they took David, who was the king of Judah, and made him the king of a reunited kingdom of Israel. So they're literally kingmakers.
And do you notice that there's always these legends of people are fearful of men from the north? They say men from the north, but we always go right to the North Pole or whatever. But maybe it meant the Danans. Maybe it meant the tribe of Dan, because they were in the northern part of the area that we're talking about, and they were fierce.
Well, let's round off this one, Jim. There's only 3 paragraphs here.
Yeah.
And then we can. Then I'll let you extrapolate further on that. Okay. It says the most celebrated Danite was Samson. Oh, the boy with the hair, who some suggest is derived from Danann tribal legends. The Antichrist is also said to be a member of the tribe of Dan. Let me just emphasize that and reiterate it. In this theory, the Antichrist is also said to be a member of the tribe of Dan. Modern artists use the, quote, scales of justice to represent the tribe of Dan due to the Genesis 49:16, referencing Dan judging his people. However, more traditional artists use the snake to represent Dan based on Genesis 49:17. The snake, you say? Oh, a reptilian indeed. Their primary trade characteristic was seafaring, unusual for the Israelite tribes. In the Song of Deborah, the tribe is said to have stayed on their ships with their belongings. As part of the kingdom of Israel, the territory of Dan was conquered by the Assyrians and the tribe exiled. The manner of the exile led to their future history being lost. Da, da, da.
See, the tribe of Dan. I'm telling you. And, have you ever heard of the tribe of Dan before today, really? I mean, you've heard about it.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I've heard like coast to coast shows and things with guests coming on and talking about this kind of biblical woo. That's what I was saying during the break over on Disco. People were saying, well, like this kind of biblical woo. That's what I kind of broke my teeth on, the old kind of...
You could literally spend the rest of your life researching and writing about. You can literally make a career out of this right here, because there is so much here. It's not even funny. I mean, we can barely even scratch the surface today, but everybody else who's finding out about it, you can look into this too. There's plenty of material on the tribe of Dan, and were the Irish gods or aliens? I don't know. You see this bloodline is still present everywhere. Yep. And the tribe of Dan is inexplicably in power. still. And you know, it was interesting when I originally found out about the tribe of Dan. George Bush was in office, and there was evidence that he may be directly linked to the tribe of Dan, George Bush himself.
Well,
So you know,
I think like all but is it not something like all but one or two of the presidents have been related to old King John, so they would all be related to that bloodline, apart from the ones that ain't.
well, wouldn't this not make sense? You know, to have secret societies protecting uh, the secrets of the tribe of Dan and the magic and the Egyptian magic's been passed down from lip to ear through the initiate process from a mentor. It doesn't exist in books. You can't go read about it somewhere. There's no scrolls. This is information that's spoken, like I said, lip to ear. And you only get the lip to your ear once you jump over the pit of snakes and hack your way through the dark underworld, you know, to learn your lesson. And then once you made it through all that, you can go ask the question. And the question is, do you have what it takes to be part of the tribe of Dan?
The real question is as well, there's another question. Were the Irish gods or aliens?
That is the question.
That's exactly, and that's where we're going right now. It says here it is little wonder that the tribe of Dan, or the tribe of the gods, were mistaken as the stuff of nonsense, but we as mere mortals today can make our own conclusions. When I came to live in Ireland, it did not take long for me to fall in love with this misty landscape and scattered ancient ruins. They drew me in. I felt at once connected and intrigued. Leaving behind the realm of accepted Irish history, I plunged into the shadowy domain of Irish mythology, and that was where I first encountered the Tuatha de Danann. Stories of the Danann were passed down through the ages into legend via the ancient oral tradition of the poets. Later, Christian monks began assembling and recording them in an effort to produce a history of Ireland. Inevitably, these texts were influenced by the beliefs, or their beliefs and doctrines, their translation skills, or lack thereof, and the desire to please their patrons. Sounds like alt media. What we were left with is impossible to distill into fact and fiction, like most of alt media. These myths are so fantastic, so bizarre, that no scholar or historian worth his salt would ever entertain them as anything other than pure fantasy, and that's where the Kev Baker show thrives. We thrive in areas of pure fantasy. And remember, I always say mythology comes from somewhere. And it lives on and becomes a legend for a reason. And many times the reason is that it's actually something that was real. So, but I am not a scholar, and neither am I. And I do not have to worry about academic reputation, nor do I. And I say there is no smoke without fire. Tuatha de Danann, pronounced Thua de Danann, I'm just going to call them the tribe of Danu from now on. Scholars are agreed that Danu was the name of their goddess, most probably Anu or Annan. As long as it's not Anne, don't give her. That'll be too much of a dopamine for my Annie. However, that is unproven, and I believe could equally be referred to their leader or king, or even the place from which they originated. They were a race of god-like people, gifted with supernatural powers, who invaded and ruled Ireland over 4,000 years ago. Now, according to an ancient document known as the Annals of the Four Masters, Analu Ne, alright, that's like really wild Irish names, compiled by Franciscan monks between 1632 and 1636 from earlier texts. The Danann ruled from 1897 BC until 1700 BC, a short period indeed, in which to have accumulated such fame. They were said to have originated from 4 mythical northern cities: Murius, Gorius, Fallius, and Phineus, possibly located in Loch Lan, which is Norway. So the Book of Invasions, that comes from 1150 BC, I'm taking it. I don't know, 1150 anyway, claims in a poem that they came to Ireland riding in flying ships surrounded by dark clouds. They landed on Sliav and Iron Mountain in County Leitrim. I can't say the Gaelic for it, folks, even though Scottish speak Gaelic as well. It's not happening with me. Where they brought a darkness over the sun lasting 3 days. This was a lovely line which illustrates perfectly the bewilderment felt towards these conquerors, and it goes like this. The truth is not known beneath the sky of stars, whether they were heaven or earth. A later version of the story relegates the flying ships to mere sailing ships. The dark clouds become towering columns of smoke as the ships were set alight, a warning to the observers that the Danann were here to stay. Clearly, the monks recording this story were trying to make sense of something which was well out of their comfort zone. And so we have our first dilemma. Which story to believe? Did they arrive from the skies or from across the sea? So it goes on to talk about what did they look like. They certainly looked very different to the small, dark, native peoples of Ireland at that time. The Danann are generally described as tall with red or blonde hair, blue or green eyes, and pale skin. A lot of Irish lassies have got the red hair, the green eyes, and the pale skin, I'm just saying. Interestingly, archaeology has unearthed evidence all around the world of small colonies of red-haired people from the same time period as the tribe of Dan's arrival in Ireland. Excavations in Xinjiang province, China, have revealed mummies of red and blonde-haired people living around 4,000 years ago. The extremely well-preserved Egyptian mummy of nobleman Yoya, not Yoda, but Yoya, which was found in 1400 BC, or when he was around 1400 BC, shows he had blonde hair and Nordic features, as did his wife, Thuya. She was also Tutankhamun's great-grandmother. And interestingly, the next bit is subtitled First Bionic Man. In order to win supremacy over Ireland, the Danann fought against the existing ruling tribe, the Fir Bolg, in the first battle of Moytura. During this encounter, the Danann High King Nauda Argit Lam, pronounced Tuatha Orgeth Lam, lost his arm. He survived, but lost his position, as a king could not be seen to be anything less than whole if he was to bring his people continued success. In an intriguing turn of events, the physician Diane Checht replaced the lost limb with a fully functional arm of silver. Later, Diane Kecht's son, Mayach, also a physician, caused skin and flesh to grow over the metal arm. Thus, whole again, the kingship was restored to Nuada following the ousting of his replacement, the tyrant Bress. So here we have another strange case, advanced, dare we say, alien technology. Could this be the first ever prosthesis, a robotic arm built over 4,000 years ago? The 4 treasures of Erin. The Danann brought with them equipment the Danann brought special equipment with them. 4 magical talismans of great power. And these were 1, the Sword of Light, also known in Irish as the Cleave Shullish, which is said to have been made by the Uskias in the northern city of Findias and brought to Ireland by Nuada, and that no one ever escaped from it once it was drawn against them. It also described as a glowing white torch, and the similarities of the imaginary lightsaber are quite striking. Could this sword have been some kind of futuristic laser weaponry? Certainly sounds that way, Jimmy.
It does. And it sounds remarkably familiar to stories that we've heard from the Hindus and some of the things that were present at certain times on the earth. So, and also the other thing was that when you were going through some of that, um, brought to mind these legends that we've heard over time, especially like when you look at some of the lore from Scotland and you see some of these giant weapons of war. There's potential that these some of these Dananns could have been big dudes, big people. One of the things they're accredited for, Kev, is actually building the Trojan horse.
Wow.
That was used in the Trojan War. So these are there's potential that when these tribe of Dan people showed up, there was all of a sudden people were doing things they weren't doing before. Maybe domesticated animals, organized crops, these types of things. That wherever they showed up, all of a sudden, they made a presence known. They kept quiet to themselves. Everybody would find them because they were doing the same thing everybody else was doing. They were just doing it a little bit different. There was a magic there, in Celtic and shamanistic lore. There's a saying that says, if a path has no magic, the path is dead. And I also want to point out that in a lot of the stories that you hear about the wounded king, the wounded king is a metaphor that happens quite a bit, and it's the overcoming of the wound. Because when the king has a wound, the land suffers. So the people the crops don't grow, nothing happens because the king is so tied up in his emotional pain from his wound that the land suffers. And so metaphysically and as a magician, he would have to overcome these obstacles in order to, again, have the land be fertile and everybody living well. And so some of the kings, they couldn't get over their injuries. And so, but the ones that did then rose out of that difficulty, just like they would in like an initiation ceremony, to overcome whatever obstacles are put in your way. Once you've risen past your obstacle or overcome your faulty nature, your human nature, and you can overcome that and get past it, then you are illuminated. And that is when you have the power to pull the sword out of the stone. And I think that's what was going on here with this tribe of Dan. I think there was some serious influence across the world. And like I say, and I keep saying, I think the tribe of Dan is in power as we speak right now.
Well,
today.
Let me throw in the next weapon before we go to the break, and it's known as Luff or Luch's spear, also known as the finest, famous yew of wood, said to have been made by Ezraz in the northern city of Garias. Luff used it to kill, I think it's Luff, used it to kill his Formorian grandfather, the giant king Balor, at the second battle of Moytura, although some versions of the story claim he used a sling. It has been suggested that Luff's spear, the spear Cremal, which blinded Cormac Mac Airt, rendering him unfit, not whole to rule, and the Lewin Celt chair, or Celt chair, are said to be one and the same weapon, although there is no accurate evidence to back this up. So the Lewin Celt chair is a fascinating legend. It was a long fiery lance from which sparks as big as eggs flew when the spear heat takes hold of it. In order to prevent the flames of the tip from consuming the shaft, the warrior holding it, the spearhead, was dipped into a cauldron of mysterious sorcerous liquid, black goo. In the destruction of the Da Derga's hostel, a saga of the Ulster cycle mythology, the Lewin Celt chair is claimed to have been discovered at the Battle of Moytura, the same battle where Luff killed Balor. And this spear then could well be Luff's and seems to possess many of the qualities of the Sword of Light. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are right up hard against the first hour break. When we
guess
come back in hour number 2, Jimmy, guess what?
When we come back, we are going to drop the hammer, ladies and gentlemen. So stick around, man. Wait till you hear what's coming up. Kev doesn't even know yet. He's going to find out on the break.
Yes,
Boom.
indeed.
Get ready. That's all I
Indeed.
gotta
And it's
say.
Wednesday night, so that means the live radio doesn't stop here because TFR doesn't roll that way. No, we don't. Lucky with Quantum Connections will be coming up right after today's show. And of course, don't forget, you want to be here tomorrow. It's not only the last Kev Baker show of the week, it's also episode number 1500. Yes, indeed, we embark on our 1500 shows. Here we go again, folks. Hour number 2 on episode number 1499 with our special guest, Jimmy Jeans. And he was threatening to throw down the hammer right before the break. But before I let Jimmy throw down his hammer, I'm going to keep the audience waiting just that little bit longer because we've got a couple of other weapons, Jim. You see how we do that? You see, you keep them really sitting on the edge of the seat, brother. There we go, right? So we'll go and we'll throw in these last 2 weapons and then prepare. Because it's hammer time with Jimmy Jeans. Yep, sounds terrible, or it sounds brilliant. One of the two. I think it's going to be brilliant. The Dagda's Cauldron. Wow. Also known as the Cauldron of Plenty. Well, it was pronounced as Qui Ra Onsik. And it was made by Semius, or Shemius, probably Seamus, of the northern city of Murius. Not much is known about the vessel, although it was thought to have had the power of bring the dead back to life, and that, quote, none would go from it unsatisfied. Dr. Ulf Erlingsson has suggested that the giant stone basin found in the eastern passage of the central mound at Noth, part of the Newgrange complex, and for anyone who hasn't looked into Newgrange, oh my word, could be the Dagda's Cauldron, and that the concentric circular design depicted on it could be a map of Atlantis, as described by Plato. How could the Danann have come to this knowledge? Now, I can tell you about Newgrange as well when I was working with the legend that was James Swagger. And for any of you out there thinking, who's James Swagger?
Yeah,
I don't know where James Swagger disappeared to. It's almost like he might have been an ancient alien. I think something nefarious happened there, and it's not a good story. But he blew my mind when he came on with real good scientific evidence for Newgrange being a little bit out of the ordinary when it comes to one of these earthworks. Because he made a compelling case, and I think, to my satisfaction, he was able to show how the architecture there was absolutely optimally tuned to creating standing waves and some kind of acoustical chamber. Now, that being said, it goes on to say here, could the Dagda's Cauldron... All right, we had that one.
Well, hey, so this is this architecture that we were talking about just a bit ago that all of a sudden showed up over here when these dudes came out of nowhere. So this is the same acoustical architecture that we're talking about that creates the cymatic principles through vibration that open up the stairway to heaven. That's what the acoustical principles in these cathedral type environments create. Kev, so it's an intense part of this story, and really, really great. What do we got? One more of these weapons?
We did. We've got the Laya Fail, and also known as the Stone of Destiny. Now we're talking, and the Coronation Stone. It was made by Morfessa of Phalius and brought into Ireland by the Danann, where they duly placed it at the Hill of Tara in County Meath. Legend has it that its cry confirmed the coronation of the rightful High King of Ireland, and that its roar could be heard throughout the land. It was broken in half sometime later by Cuchulainn when it failed to proclaim him or his protege. So one half was carried away to Scotland, hey, where it eventually ended up in the throne of the British monarchy, and it still rankles to this day. Although there is a whisper that the true stone was hidden, possibly beneath the River Tay, and it remains there to this day. A stone with a voice sounds too fanciful to be true, but perhaps it was misunderstood. Perhaps the stone was no more than a stage upon which the new king stood, his voice amplified by some sort of early or alien microphone. So, Jimmy, I'm going to drop the microphone just as you're about to drop the hammer.
Well, let me just say, it may be Thor's hammer. So, I mean, one of these tribal symbols that we see, and, like we've been talking about, the tribe of Dan, we're talking about Israelites, we're talking about Babylonian magic, Babylonian magicians going undercover as Hebrews and ending up in Israel. And we're talking about the magic seemed to perpetuate out of Egypt across over to Israel, and then out of Israel across the world. And we brought up the equilateral cross, or the Maltese cross. And one of the people that had to use that cross and used it quite frequently, and was as the subject matter of many legends, and tied directly to the Middle East and to traveling across these lands, and that is the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar also have an equilateral cross on their symbolism. So there's a potentiality here for us to have big tie-in to this group, this magic, the Solomon's Temple, all of these things, the bloodlines, and the Merovingian dynasty. So I sent you a piece there
Yep,
about the Templars, if we want to get into that, and then we can get into the Merovingians.
I don't even know if we need this. What I don't know about Templars, you could write on the back of a really big novel. No, I'm quite good on the Templars, though. It says here, what nationality were the Knights Templar? So the original 9 were French-speaking Merovingians, though one may have been Portuguese. Godfrey was Flemish. All of the Merovingian families, which were descended from the tribe of Benjamin and Judah, and traced their lineage back to the high priest of the Akhenaten Moses advisors who followed him out of Egypt to establish Israel. The two main families involved in creating and funding the Templars were the Plantagenet and the Angevin, both Merovingian. Now, the organization grew via the Merovingian network of Europe, one that was in place since the exodus of the Israeli tribes and maintained by the elder councils and high priests of various Israelite tribes, i.e. the connection between the Druid high priests of the tribe of Dan with the Merovingian advisor, Freemason / high priests of the tribe of Benjamin. Quote, for Joseph, who had become second only to the Pharaoh in Egypt, was the brother of Benjamin, and Benjamites comprise the greater part of the Merovingian bloodline, a mixture of the Meroites and the Meroites of ancient Egypt. It goes on to say Meroe of ancient Egypt, or Abyssinia, some of whom were Benjamites. And then it goes on to say the Philistine giants with whom they married, the two sons of Joseph who followed Benjamites into exile. Now the priesthood were known as the Brotherhood of the Sun, and were descended from the Great White Brotherhood. Pharaoh Akhenaten's temple was cross-shaped, built for his Brotherhood of the Sun. Akhenaten, Moses, was the progenitor of the Davidic bloodline. And it goes on to say, which through Akhenaten, Moses became the tribe of Judah, the Israelite house of royalty. The tribe of Benjamin were the high priests to the Judahites, and the advisor's role or high priest role became encoded in Templar hierarchy as the green man, a reference to the guidance of the Anubis to the Pharaoh. Osiris often portrayed as green after his rebirth, symbolizing he has become enlightened, divine. The tribe of Benjamin travelled to France after leaving Greece, from whence their exodus from Israel brought them. In France, they assumed the mantle of the Merovingian dynasty, and the high priests of the Brotherhood of the Sun became the Freemasons of the French Merovingian secret society called Carbonari, not to be confused with the Jesuit Italian Carbonari. All the original Templars were Carbonari Freemasons prior to becoming Templars. It goes on to quote here, it says, subsequently, the Prieur de Sion's Templars became the Poor Knights of Christ, the motto of the early Carbonari secret society of France. And happy friends, let us go to suffering, is a quote attributed to them. It says this is, in fact, the motto. It was recounted to me at a very early age, and my father would say this to himself if I had done something that displeased him. It was only later I was informed of its meaning, long before its publication on the website noted. So for why the Templars were established, see my answer there. Of course, you'll have the utterly profane dispute, all of this. So there you go. Yes, very interesting, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, so you see the Ark of the Covenant coming into view too, because it said that the Templars were in charge of moving the Ark of the Covenant, which would go in line with some of the technology that we were hearing about earlier, with the Irish gods, or are they aliens? The Merovingian dynasty is something that's really important, and I think from the perspective of looking at who may be part of that bloodline, you can see the people that are in utter and total control of the world and the earth as we see it and as we know it today. And I see this equilateral cross everywhere. It doesn't really matter what color it is. Because, the bottom line is the symbolism is the tribe is showing itself and flying its flag, just like the Crips and the Bloods, got the blue and the red. This is a gang sign being thrown up. And, there's the other thing too, man, is, like we've been talking about, there's this controversy where there's something that has the same name, but there's two distinct things about it that are different. So, for example, there's something called the Masons. Okay. But you can't just say the Masons and be talking about everything. There's two separate types of Masons. There's the York Rite Masonic Brotherhood, and then there's the Scottish Rite. Now, we talked about it earlier. We said, was there a distinction between Jews who are not Jews and the synagogue of Satan? Is there a separation there? Does that exist? I don't know. But just like that question exists, the same question exists. Who started the York Rite and who started the Scottish Rite? It's not the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. There's different requirements for brotherhood, for memberships. I'm not into judgment, okay? But what I can tell you is one Scottish Rite is not a requirement for you to believe in Jesus Christ or for you to worship Jesus or to think Jesus has anything to do with anything. You can become a Scottish Rite Freemason if you knock on the door and ask to come in. The big distinction is the York Rite. It's a requirement that you have an allegiance to Jesus Christ. So when I see the Templars and I see a distinction between the York Rite and the Scottish Rite and the Freemasons, and I see a difference between these secret societies, and they may have the same name, but they're definitely not the same. Just like we talked about earlier, both Catholics and Protestants are both Christian based, but they're distinctly different, just like the York Rite and the Scottish Rite. Food for thought anyway. Like I said, if you want to be one, ask one. If you know anything about these secret societies that you learned on the internet, you learned it without going through the initiation process. And if you're so concerned about what's going on behind closed doors, then maybe you should be a member, because then you can find it out in the order that you should learn it, and then you could understand it maybe better and understand why things are the way they are. Why people don't share information publicly about the secrets of the universe with just about anybody. It's because it takes a certain type of initiation process for you to get to that place. And maybe just by doing the research on the internet about this stuff, you become sort of you initiated in a sense, without any ramifications for or any kind of having to take responsibility for an oath to take what you've learned and keep it secret, because that's what you said you were going to do when you made your oath. So a lot of this stuff is secret for a reason, right? Because it's not necessarily food for thought for the majority of people. And that's why, like I said earlier, the majority of what's real that goes on is, like I said, lip to ear. And everything you do is a test. The moment you walk and knock on that door, from that moment forward, everything is a test. Everything someone says to you, everything you do. And there's a million ways you can fail, and you never knew it. And you just ended up as a third-degree Mason for the rest of your life. But if you keep passing those tests, you keep going up the ladder, and eventually you're going to be someplace that you never thought you were going to be, because you were the kind of guy that could keep your mouth shut and do what you were supposed to do. It's Kev Baker Show, True Frequency Radio. Kev Baker, how are you lot?
Good stuff, Jimmy. Good stuff. But now you're talking about the French, the Templars there. You can't get away from Bonnie Prince Charlie as well, the whole Jacobite thing. When the Jacobite army faced up against the English army. And let me tell you, there was like divisions of Scottish regiments in there as well. Go figure. What can I say? I joined the British Army, so you could call me a turncoat, right? But there's no Scottish Army to join, or I would have joined it, folks, to give myself an out there. But this kind of connection and a transfer of knowledge, perhaps, France over to Scotland and things. And also never look away from how pivotal the French, and more namely the Freemasons, were when it came to America and them getting their independence. And I think you'll find that Washington, D.C., as Masonic and as occult looking as the street map looks, that wasn't an American that done that. It was a French architect. So, he was basically encoding the symbols and the signs for those with the eyes to see.
Let me ask you this question, because I don't know, and I'm just asking you, maybe you could just know off the top of your head. Is there would you say the majority of brothers that you would run into in Scotland?
I know a lot of Masons, dude.
Huh?
I know a lot of Masons.
Yeah, so would you say the majority of Masons that you know, would you say they're Scottish Rite or York Rite?
Oh, Scottish Rite. Okay,
so let me ask you this question now, and because I've never thought of this before, but it might actually be something. Is the Protestant sect, are they York Rite?
Well, the Protestants are synonymous with Freemasonry. But you don't. But it's a fallacy. It's a fallacy to say that a Catholic can't become a Freemason, because they can. But the remember I was telling you earlier on, we've got football teams over here for all this nonsense. Well, the Rangers side, the Unionist side, that's through the King William of Orange and all that stuff. That's where you get their association too with the Unionists, the kind of Freemasonry angle.
Well, you remember when they used to say, when Trump was in office, they used to say orange man bad?
Mm.
I looked at it because I was like, you know what, I'm going to take it at face value. And I went and looked at the House of Orange, which pretty much runs the world. So that's interesting to me that, what did you say his name was? Philip of Orange?
No, King Billy. William
Billy
of Orange.
William of Orange? It's interesting, man. These
People
dots
have got
just
into
connect.
fights over talking about this in Scotland and Glasgow, dude. So I don't want to spend too much time on this particular aspect
but it's
of
relevant
it.
though in a way, because I thought,
Because if I get one word wrong
thought
here,
for
I
a
could
minute-
get stabbed in the street. Do you know what I mean?
Oh no, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Anyways, the Merovingians.
But no,
you know-
but it's there. That association is there, and it lies towards the Protestant side. But then you got to look at the name of it, right? I mean, was there a separation? Because you've got the Jacobites, you got the kind of the Scottish, right? Was there a brand of Freemasonry that was here? And remember, York, it's just over the border in England. At one time, we got as far as York. Why we didn't go further, I don't know. But if I could go back in a time machine, that's what I would do. But was that maybe their version, the English version? I don't know, dude. I don't know enough about it. I worked with a Freemason. My stepdad, he was a long time Freemason. Listen, where I brought up in the world, you couldn't get away from like Masons. They were everywhere, dude. You'd see them with their little apron on, and they would proudly wear it. And that's why, for me, it's always been like, yeah, the Masons, cool. When people say, the Masons are taking over the world, I would think back to people I knew, and I would think, what? That guy? He's got a dastardly plan to take over the world, really? But of course, there's different levels, and then, you get to the 33rd degree, and the York rite's different. They've got less rites. But then after the 33rd degree, you get invited, if you get the funny handshake, if you're one of the club and you've been identified as somebody that's going to be of use, because you've got to be able to serve your purpose there. And of course, there's this kind of thing with the Masons where you can't see another Mason done bad by, another widow's son. And that's why, you get rumors of dodgy handshakes going on and people getting contracts that really probably shouldn't have got contracts. And it gets crazy, dude.
Well,
like I say, the west of Scotland, it's like a dimensional rift. Honestly, man, it's crazy, dude.
Well, the thing is like when you get on the conveyor belt of the alternative information, and you get, like say you started out someplace like around Bill Cooper, hearing some of that, and then subsequently hearing Alex Jones for a while. They put this idea about Masons out there, and then you become aware of it if you weren't, and then all of a sudden when you become aware of it, you see it everywhere, because you can see the symbolism just about everywhere in construction, arches, this type of thing.
I went to that Roslyn Chapel, remember, and that ties in with like Grail legend and the Sinclairs, Saint Clairs, the French connection to Whistles Sinclair. I can tell you that I am still bamboozled. It's one thing seeing Roslyn Chapel in like the Da Vinci Code or a documentary, but it is absolutely, in fact, I would go as far as to say it kind of takes the breath away. It's just so spectacular when you first walk in there. You don't know where to look because it's just so intricate. It's so ornate. I have no words. I've literally got no words, dude, for when you get in there. It's like, how did people back then build things like this? And then you got the cymatic symbols and patterns in the ceiling. You've got the Apprentice's Pillar. And the story goes that the main builder, the master builder, he was trying to find a really kind of unique design for the central pillar. And funnily enough, he went to France. He went to go and look at all the Gothic kind of cathedrals over there and to give him inspiration. But in the meantime, the apprentice decided to build one of the main kind of columns in there, and they call it the Apprentice's column. And he came back, and I think if memory serves me correctly, I think he killed the young apprentice. But do you know what they done? You know what they done? I think he met a nasty, the master. He met a nasty, untimely passing as well. And what they done was they carved his face in stone, pointing at the Apprentice's pillar, so that
Whoa.
forever, for as long as that cathedral stands, that master will symbolically be looking at the work the apprentice done. And that ties in with a whole heap of Masonic lore. Listen, it is what it is, dude. We're almost at the break, so what do you make of that?
The student surpasses the master. That is the moment that you're looking for.
There you go,
And I
dude. And
think
that
we've
chapel's
hit
got it
that
all.
moment.
I think that chapel, I think Roslyn can probably, if you know what you're looking at, and there'll be very few people in the world that know all of it, if any know all of it, but you probably walk in there and it's like walking into a magical tapestry of a story of history.
Oh, man.
If you know where to look. It's even got its own magic cat, Jimmy. Like the Egyptian thing. The cats were worshipped in the temple. Roslyn has got the cat of Roslyn. It still sits there. I've got photos of it. So is that a cast back? Is that a tip of the hat to the Egyptians?
Well, when we come back, we've gotten here. We've got to talk about Fulcanelli
Okay, dude.
and
Okay.
La Cathedrals. That's his book,
Yep.
and he says that there's a code in the cathedrals that gives you the secret to alchemy.
Yep.
And he was one of the most infamous Masons of all time, and nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew his name. He wrote this book. He did some little thing with some other guy, and then he left. He's gone.
There we go, folks. Great way to take it out. It's Jimmy James right here on KBS. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Final part of today's Kev Baker show. And as always, the conversation was just cracking through the break. I was getting into my favourite politician, Nicola Sturgeon, but we'll leave that for another day altogether. I could spend 2 hours ranting and raging at that one, but it wouldn't be good radio. In fact, it'd probably be quite uncomprehendable at times because I would just be, I'd be triggered. But Jimmy, I know what can take my mind off that potential trigger point, and it's Fulcanelli, my friend. Fulcanelli. This is somebody that you kind of reintroduced me to not long ago, if I remember correctly. And very apt for this. We were talking about Roslyn before the break, right? So I'm going to post a couple of Roslyn pictures over to the TFR chat room, and I'll post some Roslyn pictures here, there, everywhere. And talk to the audience for a moment, then, if you would, if you don't mind, Jimmy, about Fulcanelli, man.
I mean, I was living next door to a guy, you know, when I was living in the Redwoods. I lived in this cabin, and there's a few cabins there, and this dude lived next to me, but I never talked to the guy before. And when I started my company, I rented another cabin, which was right across from his place, and then they came and dropped like 100,000 feet of half-inch coaxial cable in these big reels. The semi truck pulled up and dropped all this stuff, and so I never met the guy before. And then all of a sudden, he started coming over to the office and chatting it up, and he gave me a math problem to solve, and I solved it. And then he invited me over one night, me and my girlfriend, to go over to his house. And then my girlfriend backed out at the time. She left. She was like, "You go, Jimmy." And so I went over there, and I was hanging out with the guy for a minute. And, he was living in this mountain house. And he really, like I said, he really came outside. It turned out he was living in there. He had this distilled water thing set up. And it turned out the reason that he was living there, and the reason that you didn't see him too much, is because he was in an argument with the government about his taxes. And so it was an interesting conversation. And then at just about the end of the conversation, he goes, "Hey, I wanted to give you this." Okay. And he gives me this book, and it's a white book with leather bound and in gold. It's, it says, Les Cathedrals on the top, Fulcanelli in gold. And he hands me his book. And it's like, oh, okay. Thank you, and I left and I looked at it and I kind of looked it over. But at the time, like I was running my company, so I wasn't into doing the research and this and that on stuff. And so I just kind of had that book and I never looked at it again for about 5 years or so. I just kept carrying it around everywhere I went. And at one point, at this crucial moment when I was, in this learning process, I opened the book and I became aware of what the project was all about. And that's how I originally learned about Fulcanelli. And so, subsequently, some of the other work that he's done is, he's done this work on something called the phonetic kabbalah, which it's a coded way of putting information forward through text or writing, and based on different rhythms and different rhyming portions of words every so many syllables. And this is not the kabbalah with a K, this is kabbalah with a C. Phonetic kabbalah, you can check that out. And just realizing that we all know that language is words or spells and that type of thing, and it all has to do with the sound that it makes when it comes out. It doesn't really matter what language you're speaking. What matters is the harmonic or the vibration or the tonal that comes out of you when you do that or say that or sing that. So like we were talking about with these cathedrals, when you're realizing the tonal and then you're realizing the harmonic, then you get into these cathedrals like the one that Kev can just go to, and many of us can't even dream of going to a place like that. And you could go in there and say a word and have that word vibrate throughout the whole building. And so as you imagine a group of people engaging in a certain rhythmic chant at a certain tonal rate is how you open up the stairway to heaven. And so, but Fulcanelli is really, he's a French alchemist. And so what he said was that in the Gothic cathedrals that there were, in all the stained glass windows and the ornate fixtures everywhere on these buildings was everything that was there was a representation of the keys to the secrets of alchemy, and that the code was there, and that you could put these different cathedrals together and unlock the key to taking and turning from lead to gold. And that doesn't necessarily mean gold nuggets you can go down to the store and buy some with. That means taking the man as he is, as a piece of lead, and getting to the point where he's shining and his vibration is illuminated to the point where he is golden. And so the illumination takes place in the journey, and the journey is contained in the cathedrals. And so I sent you a couple of chunks over there, Kev. Maybe you can give people a little more detailed information on Fulcanelli, because I got to grab a quick cup of coffee. And since I know a little bit about him, if you can give me like 2 minutes.
Yep, no problem. Give me a
right
second.
back.
I'm just sending some pictures over to TFR right now. Let me send a couple here. Now, there's a fancy looking cross on it, which is, I would imagine, very reminiscent to the cross you've been talking about, Jimmy. Let me drop that.
I'll tell you what, if I was over in Europe, I'd find myself a cafe motorcycle, get a backpack, take off, and just go to a bunch of these cathedrals and just check them out, man. Maybe someday, we'll do something like that. It'd be cool, man, to be able to do that. And I mean, you could just do it. That's what's cool. Well, sort of. But I mean, in all things considered, if things were all normal, you could just, you know what I mean? Man. I mean, over here, I got nothing. I got the surf museum. But I got the redwoods, Kev, so it's good. It's all good.
There we go. Right. I've dropped one over to TFR. Okay, so sweet. Fulcanelli, brother, Fulcanelli. Let me get this up here. You dropped it in the chat room. I dropped you a picture in there
his protege Eugene is also interesting. I sent you his information as well.
Okay, let us head over here. You go do what you got to do then, dude, and I'll start reading this one out.
Yeah, I just got to give me some coffee, boy.
No probs, dude. No probs. You do that. And I will introduce this little segment here on Fulcanelli. Was the name used by a French alchemist and esoteric author whose identity is still debated. The name Fulcanelli seems to be a play on words. Vulcan, the ancient Roman god of fire, and also a race of beings in Star Trek, I just want to throw in there, plus El, a Canaanite name for God, and the sacred fire. Sorry, I'm reading it crap now. I'll get back to my good reading. The appeal of Fulcanelli as a cultural phenomenon is due partly to the mystery of most aspects of his life and work. Now, one of the anecdotes pertaining to his life in particular, how his most devoted pupil, Eugene Cancelliet, performed a successful transmutation of 100 grams of lead into gold in a laboratory of the gasworks of Sarcelles at Georgie Company. Yeah, with the use of a small quantity of the projection powder given to him by his teacher in the presence of Julien Champagne and Gaston Sauvage. Oh, very good. So it says Fulcanelli was likely a Frenchman. Ooh la la. May I give a big shout out to Donny? Donny down under, you get better now, Donny. That's a private joke, as you know. Fulcanelli was a Frenchman educated in the ways of alchemical lore, architecture, art, science, and languages. Now, Fulcanelli wrote 2 books that were published after his disappearance in 1926. Did he just transmute into another verse? Who knows? Who knows? Having left his magnum opus, Le Mystère des Cathédrales, with his only student, Eugene Cancellier. Its first edition consisted of 300 copies, and published by Jean Schmidt at 52 Rue Lafitte, Paris. And that's, if you want to be really boring, that's Lafitte Street in Paris. Theories about Fulcanelli speculate that he was another famous French occultist of the time, perhaps a member of the former royal family, the House of Valois, or another member of the Frères de Heliopolis, the Brothers of Heliopolis, a society centered around Fulcanelli, which included Eugene Cancellier, Jean-Julien Champagne, and Jules Butcher, or probably Boucher. So Patrick Riviere, a student at Conciliates, believed that Fulcanelli's true identity was Jules Voual, a famous French physicist. Now, in a 1996 book, samples of writing by Jean-Julien Hubert Champagne and Fulcanelli were compared and show considerable similarity. In any event, by 1916, Fulcanelli had accepted Cancellier, who was then only 16, as his first student. During 1921, he accepted the sons of Ferdinand de Lesseps as students, and in 1922, 2 more students, Jules Boucher and Gaston Sauvage. In 1925, Fulcanelli relocated to 59, and that's Cinq-Neuf Rue Rochechouart, where he was allegedly succeeded in transmuting base metals into gold. Yeah, 59 Rochechouart Street, just in case you missed that one, folks. In 1960, when the publication of the international bestseller The Morning of Magicians, Pauwels and Bergier popularized the mystery of the master alchemist. You liking the bit of French I'm throwing in here, Jim, as well? Yeah, keep it, just need a bit of garlic on it, a bit of garlic, and it'll be fine. Without so it says, who's Fulcanelli's master then? So without neglecting the belief of some researchers that Cancellier himself could have been Fulcanelli, Cancellier himself believed that Fulcanelli's master was Basil Valentine. Great name. An alchemist of the 15th century. The theoretical master, at least, for Fulcanelli's initiator may have been his own wife. For every good man, there's usually a good woman in there somewhere. As Fulcanelli describes in a strange letter he kept as a talisman about the completion of the great work by someone who is presumably Basil Valentine. He also mentions his own wife, quote, when my wife told me the good news, and my wife with the inexplicable intuition of sensitives had a really strange dream. As shown by this letter, when referring to something as important as the great work. Now, it says that the great work is a term used in Hermeticism and occult traditions, descended from it most prominently, Thelema. And that takes us to who created Thelema? Aleister Crowley. And what was Crowley trying to do at Bleskin House? Oh, part of his great work. And he mentions his wife as someone important to the magnum opus. So it concludes that according to Lewis Pauls, Fulcanelli survived World War II and disappeared completely after the liberation of Paris. Every attempt to find him failed, and in August 1945, American G2, and that's Army Intelligence, asked Jacques Bergier to contact a certain army major who was in charge of the operation of searching for German research reports on atomic energy. The major, whose identity was apparently anonymous or simply forgotten, wanted to know the whereabouts of Fulcanelli. Bergier could not say that the army major seemed satisfied. Fulcanelli could not be found. Interesting stuff, Jimbo. So what?
So back to France again, right? So we were over there a minute ago, for a different reason, but there we are again. The French influence into this, and then we also touched a little bit on what we're going to get into next Wednesday, which is the Morning of the Magicians document. And so we'll get into that next week, but he just brought it up. You just brought it up there in that little chirp that you had there. And then of course Eugene, I sent you his dossier.
Well, before we get to that, I think even more interesting would be to take a look at something else you mentioned, which is the phonetic kabbalah. Now, according to Fulcanelli, the phonetic kabbalah, Fulcanelli's term for a special use of language, drawing on phonetic similarities and other symbolic techniques for expanding the expressive reach of words, is not the Hebrew Kabbalah. It's probably, and I'm adding this in here and I'm thinking aloud, but it might be more along the lines of the Enochian language that maybe John Dee was messing about with. And I'm only throwing that out there because he, like Fulcanelli, it would appear, were alchemists, right? I could be wrong. I'm just throwing it in there. But even the derivation is different. Kabbalah is derived from the Latin kabbalus, a horse, as in the horse of Troy in the Iliad. It is basically homophonic, that's homophonic, ladies and gentlemen, and symphonic, rather than numerical. It is based on phonetic assonance and resonance to echo the gay science, in the words of the ancient Greek deities, spoken in sacred ancient Greek nomenclature. Wow. Nomenclature's come up on the show and in Discord about 10 times over the past 2 days. That's weird. Because it's a weird word. You don't really hear it used that much, right? According to Walter Lang, who wrote an introduction to the English translation of Fulcanelli's Le Mystère des Cathédrales, the basic principles of the phonetic Kabbalah are restored in Fulcanelli's magnum opus. Jimbo.
That's right. It is. And the phonetic Kabbalah is the key to everything. And it just shows you that no matter what you may think you even know, because you read it in a book, you weren't even reading the book that was put out there. The book that Aleister Crowley put out there that's printed up that you can go down and buy for $19.95 down at the store or whatever. I mean, that the person that reads that book for $19.95 is seeing one thing, but the actual material is not in there. The actual material is in there phonetically through the phonetic kabbalah. And so when you realize that, man, you got to start from scratch. It's just like the actual, to try to figure this out. And I mean, you see, there's a correlation here, because what I want to point out is we brought up earlier, the tribe of Dan were the ones that created the Trojan horse. Okay, he just now said the phonetic kabbalah is like a Trojan horse. So this is a direct tie-in to the magic and the Babylonian magic we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, we accidentally stumbled onto it. I mean, there's a parallel here that's undeniable. So I'm going to take advantage of pointing it out.
Dude, this is good stuff, man. This is good stuff. What do you want to wrap it up with, dude?
Well, I mean, did you want to get in? I mean, I don't know. What do you think about it all? I mean, here it is, the tribe of Dan. These red-haired people came out of nowhere, coming out of the north, technologies, Irish gods, lightsabers, the Knights Templar. I mean, we've gone literally around the bend, and we just came back to the Trojan horse. And I just really told you something that really blew my mind when I came to terms with it, because it made me realize that, yeah, I've read a lot of books, I've read a lot of text, but when the moment of realization, or this is intense revelation of the method that's undeniable, and it really lets you know that even any book that we've ever read, I mean, this is a particular way that people can send code to each other. There's a story called 3 Days of the Condor. It was a movie that came out starring Robert Redford. And he plays a CIA agent, but he's like a mellow-mannered dude. All they do is read books, because these books and magazines are printed overseas, and agents that are over there send messages back to the CIA through these printed materials. So it's sort of, in an overt way, sort of explaining the same thing, and to the point now when you realize what we're talking about, and then you add in, we're now in 2021. So if you could do this and have been able to do this forever, like we're talking about, then imagine what could be done once you've taught an AGI how to do it, how to set this code into written text, and then hand speeches to politicians, and send messages through the words coming out of the people that you recognize, but realistic, the people that are listening are listening through the language of the green light, and they're hearing a whole different speech. Maybe they're hearing the speech that we hear when we do reverse speech on people's speeches. Maybe that's what we're hearing, the phonetic kabbalah coming in reverse, because like I said, all these languages, it doesn't matter what language you're speaking. What matters is the tone and the energy that comes out of you when you speak those words. And that's why the phonetic kabbalah and the acoustic principles of the cathedrals and all of these things, the alchemy, everything, all of it, all adds up into one giant thing. And it adds up to the magic that was going on in Egypt came to Europe, and I came here through the tribe of Dan, is what I think.
I think you've made a pretty good, compelling case for it being very, very worthy of one's time, if one is inclined to research this further. When I was on with Travis Short on Warrior Mode, we were talking about doing a show about Paul McCartney. And when he came off the show, he said to me, Kev, come on now. In your estimations, like, where would you put it on, like, how worthy it is, like, looking into this? And I said, I can't tell you the truth. I don't know what's right or what's wrong about it, but the abundance of information and potential evidence definitely makes it a worthy 9 on my scale, I told Travis. And with just the bit that we've scraped tonight, I can tell you, and Jimmy he'll probably back me up on this, we've barely scratched the surface of all of this. When you get into the whole Merovingian kind of stuff and all that as well, I again would put this particular line of research theory up there, right up there. There's a compelling case to be made, but you know how we roll here. We've been going for 1,499 shows, and I don't ever tell anybody what to think. What I do, and what Jimmy has helped me to do today, is provide you with enough to get you started and to get you thinking. And hopefully you'll go and take a look at this, and what you decide, what you come up with, is absolutely awesome, because in that respect, it's true to KBS. We provide, you decide. Jimmy, I have absolutely loved this, dude. Now, over in the TFR chat room, it was mentioned about the DNA that may be encoded into Roslyn Chapel, and I dropped it over at the TFR chat room. It's the Apprentice Pillar that we were talking about. I'll send you a picture of it here as well, Jimmy. Just in there. There we go. I mean, you could say that people have said that this is reminiscent of a double helixed DNA, but I would offer that, I don't know. You know, perhaps it does resemble that. Can't get away from maybe the double helix thing.
You know the symbol of the two.
But I would imagine, though, Jimmy, that would be part of the apprentice's kind of story, right? It'd be part of the kind of the tale of the apprentice's column. But I don't know, because like I said to you before, and like I'll say to the audience, this is the kind of place where me, Jimmy, and all of you could walk into, and we're all going to see something completely different, because we're all going to see things the way that our brain sees things. And it's only going to be if you've got the true eyes to see, Jimmy, right? You know what you're looking at, that you might actually start to see a little bit of DNA crawling up round the column, dude.
Well, you know that caduceus, the two snakes going up to either side of the staff, the medical symbol that you see in America for doctors, the American Medical Association. The caduceus, yeah, that looks like a DNA strand to me too. And I think you're onto something there. And Leo Zagami was on my show, and he told me that the people are all concerned about bloodline, but it's really DNA is the real thing. And maybe we'll get into that at another time.
Yeah.
Next week, though, Morning of the Magicians, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning of the Magicians. I love it. I love it. This has been great. I hope you people out there have enjoyed it. Bam, big shout out to you. Big shout out to everyone over in the TFR chat room. We've got Alan, Bam, Buzzachino, Robofish, JG Knight, Daryl, Greg, Blessed. We have got Drone Free Zone, Engaged Guest, Pondering User, Divine Being. Please all come back tomorrow for episode 1500, wherever you are. Make it TFR, and Denny touch that dial.